Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mara Fajon, and this is a presentation about the journal article, The Impact of Program Context on Motivational System Activation and Subsequent Effects on Processing a Fear Appeal. The article has been published on the Journal of Advertising in 2006. This presentation will cover a summary of the article and its main aims and findings. There will also be a discussion of the theories underpinning the article. The presentation will end with suggestions for marketeers on how to use the research's findings in order to improve their communication strategies. Also, practical examples of applications in the advertising industry will be given. The article analyzed is a research article that covers the development of free experiments, which will be explained later on. The article draws on Cacioppo's dual motivational theory. Cacioppo conceptualizes emotional states as results of dual, independent motivational systems within the human organism, the appetitive and the aversive systems. This theory has been used for the first time in the advertising studies. The article aims to investigate the impact of emotional television programming on the processing of a persuasive message, in particular fear appeals. The authors believe mood inducement triggered by certain television programs can carry over to the processing of commercials in programming breaks. The fear appeal used for the research is a negative public service announcement about safe driving, with images of fire and people screaming. The research was divided into 3 experiments during which the viewers were watching either sad or comic programming before the exposure to a negative PSI. The first experiment hypothesized that the mood induced by comic and sad programming would activate the appetitive and aversive motivational system. Once this hypothesis was supported, the research aimed to determine how activation of these motivational systems would translate to the concept of arousal in response to a persuasive fear appeal message. The last experiment used physiological measures as an attempt to eliminate cognition. At the end of the research, the authors were able to confirm that the appetitive and aversive systems are activated by comic and sad programming respectively. They also discovered that viewers placed in a negative activation state by the television program had an increase in tension arousal when exposed to a fear appeal message. Participants whose appetitive motivational system was activated by the comic television program were responding to the fear appeal message with less tension arousal. This is because the appetitive motivational system had to be deactivated first. The article reveals characteristics of advertising theories, such as the importance of media context, involvement, and the elaboration likelihood model. Media context has influence on how people perceive, interpret, and process an advertising message. It is demonstrated that a consumer's impression of a message is shaped by the medium through which it is received. This is important for advertisers because a persuasive strategy can interact with the programming context and can impact the motivational systems of the target audiences. The research shows that involvement the viewer has with the television programming will be transferred to the processing of the advertising message. According to Solomon, involvement is the level of personal importance and/or interest evoked by stimulus within a specific situation. There are few stimuli that have impact on whether the consumer is likely to be involved with the advert. Those are personal factors, interest, values, and communication source and content. Therefore, fear appeal message should be placed within even slightly negative programming to be more effective. The article also reconnects to the elaboration likelihood model. The model explains how cognitive processing, persuasion, and attitude change can occur when different levels of involvement are present. When the viewer is very involved with the television programming, he will elaborate under the central route. In this situation, the cognitive response of the viewer is high, and the ability of the advertisement to persuade the viewers is higher as well. As a result, the viewer will form attitudes toward the advert and purchase intention. Few factors influence whether the viewer is involved or not with the advertisement. Two of these are the source and content of the communication. When viewers' aversive motivational system is already activated by the television programming, the viewer will pay more attention to the information contained in an advertisement using fear appeal. Here there are some suggestions for marketeers. Advertising always works as a part of a surrounding context. As shown by the research in the article, the effectiveness of an advert can depend on the medium in which the advert is shown. Advertisers should create messages and position them within the right programming context in order to profit by the viewer's involvement with the programming. As a result, the motivational systems of the target audience will be transferred from the programming context to processing the advert. One way to interact the programming context with a certain message is to communicate with the viewer using words related to the programming shown. Experiment 2 of the article has shown the advertisers should not only consider the programming context in which an advert is shown, but also the emotional tone of the campaign. This is because the same message can cause activation of different arousal constructs depending on which motivational system is activated through the television programming. Persuasive messages could be appositely designed to activate the appetitive or the aversive systems. A further implication in advertising is that fear appeal messages should be placed in programming where even slightly negative content is expected. This could be news programs or even daytime talk show. Marketeers have already applied some of the implications to the advertising industry. O2 marketeers knew the music fans love Skins, therefore they signed up as a sponsor for the third series of the show in order to promote O2 musical relationship with 11 venues across the UK. O2 engaged with music fans through sponsoring a program that its target market was highly involved with. Kia and Mentos have used the cognitive association from the television program to the advertisements as a marketing tactic. Kia supports the US crime drama series on Channel 5, and Mentos supports the last series of The Vampire Diaries. The communication strategy applies to the concept of transferring cognitive meanings from the programming to the advertisement. Kia's ad represents pictures related to crime, and also the music has been chosen in regard of a dramatic situation. The message sent by Mentos to the consumer was, "There is nothing like a Mentos kiss." The word kiss is easily associated by the consumer's mind with the program about vampires and their famous kisses. Just to briefly review the article, it can be added that dual motivational theory was applied for the first time in advertising research. Also, the sad and comic programming used in the three experiments were more subtle than in previous studies. The research has also limitations. The authors do not take into consideration mediating factors that can alter or change the viewer's response to the fear appeal message. Those are motivation, ability to process information, and personal involvement. Studies has also found that fear appeal messages may be ineffective because consumers' perceptual defense helps to block and ignore the message. Review of the theories. Although the elaboration likelihood model is useful for marketeers to design the best marketing strategy based on how involved consumers are, it also has limitations. It assumes consumers all go through the same stages when exposed to a message. Media context is extremely significant for the success of an advertising message. Advertisers need to define if and how consumers are involved with a certain program, and if the program will be the best context for their advertising messages. The report has given some suggestions for marketeers on how to use the information in order to create better and more effective advertising campaigns. The media context has to be a central point of the campaign, as well as the message itself. The advert must be able to interact with the program context in order to transfer the motivational systems of the target audience from the programming context to the processing of the advert. A good attention has to be given to the emotional tone of the message as well. The interaction between the activation of motivational system through the programming context and creative and media strategies needs to be further investigated and is an opportunity for future studies.